A comparison between the conventional approach to the hydrologic balance and Leibovich's catchment wetting approach, referred herein as the cybernetic approach, reveals fundamental conceptual differences. The conventional approach is seen to be mostly suited to event hydrology, particularly for applications of flood hydrology and related urban hydrology. On the other hand, the cybernetic approach is suited to yield hydrology, that is, for determinations of the availability of water resources on an annual basis. The conventional hydrologic balance, commonly referred to as the hydrologic budget of a catchment, is covered in all standard hydrology textbooks. A hydrologic budget is an accounting of the various transport phases of the hydrologic cycle within a catchment. The following is a complete hydrologic budget including both surface and groundwater, in which delta S is equal change in storage, P equal precipitation, E evaporation, T evapotranspiration, G groundwater outflow, and Q surface runoff. Equation 1 states that within a given time span, the change in water volume remaining in storage in a catchment is the difference between the input, precipitation, and the sum of all the outputs, evaporation, evapotranspiration, groundwater outflow, and surface runoff. In hydrologic practice, the terms of equation 1 are expressed in units of water depth, that is, a water volume uniformly distributed over the catchment area. Under equilibrium conditions, delta S is equal to 0, and equation 1 reduces to a partial hydrologic budget, which considers only surface water, is, in which I is equal to infiltration. Within a given time span, under equilibrium conditions, that is, delta S equals 0, equation 3 reduces to equation 4 is imperfect because it assumes that infiltration amounts are permanently lost to the surface water budget, which is not quite correct. Within a given time span, say 1 year, infiltrated amounts may actually return to the control volume and be eventually released as evaporation from lakes and ponds, evapotranspiration from vegetation, or as the baseflow component of surface runoff. Notwithstanding its apparent limitations in yield hydrology, equation 4 works well in event hydrology. In equation 4, the hydrologic losses, L, are defined as the sum of evaporation, evapotranspiration, and infiltration. This results in, which leads to the fundamental equation of flood hydrology. On a global annual basis, all precipitation either 1. It returns to the atmosphere as vaporization through evaporation and evapotranspiration, or 2. It runs off the land as runoff, that is, streamflow. The conventional water balance separates precipitation into losses and runoff. The losses are evaporation, evapotranspiration, and infiltration. Yet the infiltration portion of the losses may eventually show up as evaporation, evapotranspiration, or even the baseflow component of runoff, hence the double counting. Leibovich solved this problem by introducing the concept of catchment wetting. He separated annual precipitation into two components, in which S equals surface runoff, that is, the fraction of runoff originating on the land surface, and W equal catchment wetting, or simply wetting, the fraction of precipitation not contributing to surface runoff. In turn, wetting is separated into two components, in which U equal baseflow, that is, the fraction of wetting which exfiltrates as the dry weather flow of streams and rivers, and V equal vaporization, that is, the fraction of wetting returned to the atmosphere as water vapor. Leibovich's hydrologic budget neglects deep percolation, the portion of wetting which bypasses the surface waters altogether, estimated at less than 2% of precipitation on a global basis. Vaporization, which comprises all moisture returned to the atmosphere, has two components, in which E equal non-productive evaporation, hereafter referred to as evaporation, and T equal productive evaporation, that is, that resulting from plant transpiration, hereafter referred to as evapotranspiration. In turn, evaporation has two components, in which E sub G equal evaporation from the ground, bare soil, and small surface storage, and E sub W equal evaporation from water bodies such as lakes, reservoirs, streams, and rivers. Evapotranspiration T is the evaporation from vegetated surfaces such as leaves and other parts of plants, a function of the physiological need of plants to pump moisture from the soil to maintain turgor and avail themselves of nutrients. Runoff, that is total runoff, is the sum of surface runoff and base flow. Combining equations 7, 8, and 11, combining equations 11 and 12 leads to equation 13 separates annual precipitation into its three major components: 1. Surface runoff, 2. Base flow, and 3. Vaporization. Significantly, equation 13 assumes that the change in soil moisture storage from year to year is negligible, an assumption which is useful as a first approximation. Under Livovich's hydrologic budget, two water balance coefficients may be defined: 1. Runoff coefficient, and 2. Base flow coefficient. The runoff coefficient is. The base flow coefficient is. These figures show runoff and base flow coefficients calculated by Ponce and Shetty based on data reported by Livovich. It is seen that in all cases, runoff and base flow coefficients increase with annual precipitation. It is seen that the conventional hydrologic balance is deductive and demonstrably based on a premise of cause-effect. The fundamental approach is subtractive, characterized by the statement, quote, runoff is equal to precipitation minus losses, unquote. It works reasonably well for applications in event hydrology, such as the rational method of urban hydrology, but due to the double counting, its accuracy decreases for the longer-term yield hydrology. On the other hand, the cybernetic hydrologic balance is inductive, not based on cause-effect, but rather on the system's wholeness. The fundamental approach is additive, characterized by the statement, quote, precipitation is equal to runoff plus vaporization, unquote. This approach is suited for applications in yield hydrology, that is, for determinations of annual baseflow and runoff coefficients. The cybernetic hydrologic balance is applied herein to data from the Sarada River Basin, upstream of Anakapali in Andhra Pradesh, India. The basin is positioned between the Eastern Ghats and the eastern coastline of India and features a subhumid climate with a drainage area of 1,980 square kilometers. 11 years of rainfall runoff data are analyzed. The precipitation data consists of a daily rainfall hydrograph, and the runoff data consists of the hydrograph measured at the basin outlet. The annual hydrographs are used to calculate annual rainfall P in millimeters. Each annual hydrograph is integrated to obtain runoff R in millimeters. Surface runoff S in millimeters is obtained by hydrograph separation using established principles. The matrix of PRS is used to run the calculator online water balance. This figure shows the tabular results of the online program. A comparison between the conventional approach to the hydrologic balance and Livovich's catchment wetting approach, referred herein as the cybernetic approach, reveals fundamental conceptual differences. The conventional approach is seen to be mostly suited to event hydrology, particularly for applications of flood hydrology and related urban hydrology. On the other hand, the cybernetic approach is suited to yield hydrology, that is, for determinations of the availability of water resources on an annual basis. The cybernetic hydrologic balance is applied herein to data from the Sarada River Basin, upstream of Anakapali in Andhra Pradesh, India. An online calculator rounds up the experience.